Hey everyone, Nick Juskewycz here. This is Tee to Green with Daily Fantasy Winners, and this is part 2 of our Masters preview, getting you ready for the Millionaire Maker, the first major of the 2016 PGA season. So in this part, we're going to talk about the details of Augusta National and some statistics to key in on as far as the picks go and helping you make the best lineup possible. All right, so details on Augusta National. This is a par 72 at 7,435 yards. This course was lengthened back in 2010 from just under 7,000 yards to what it is right now. So it's an additional 450 to 500 yards in length. And so if you're doing any kind of course history research, just keep that in mind. If you go farther back than 2010, you're doing kind of any kind of data analysis. Just know it's not going to be the same exact golf hole per se or golf course that the players used to play. This is not that long of a golf course. 7,435 yards may seem like a lot, but on the PGA Tour for a par 72, that's about average, roughly, so to speak. Maybe it's slightly above average. But the thing is, the golf course doesn't play that long because there's a lot of elevation on this golf course, and basically the way the holes are designed, from beginning to finish, it basically makes you use every golf club in your bag. There are going to be some longer approaches, definitely some longer par threes, but there's a lot of shorter ones as well. And so it's a very good balance here. So the length thing is not a big thing here. Now, the front nine's a little bit tougher than the back nine. It's a little bit more straightforward. And I don't mean it doesn't have character, because the whole golf course absolutely has character. But it's a little bit more straightforward just in that there's no penalty strokes on the front nine. But it's a little bit. Some of the tee shots are a little bit narrower. Some of the shots, the approach shots, are just a little bit longer in general, and some of the greens are pretty complex. And it's just there's not as many score. It's probably should be more even looked at as there's just not as many birdie opportunities, and there's not as many eagle opportunities as well either. And we'll get into that here in just a moment. The back nine is slightly more scoreable, however, because of Amen Corner with water on 11, 12, and 13, and then of course water on 15 and a little bit on 16. We see a lot more of a variety of scores there. We've seen people shoot 30. We've seen people shoot in the low to mid-40s. So we can get all kinds of scores there, which will make the finish on Sunday for the Millionaire Maker and Daily Fantasy a lot more exciting. All right, so the 4 par 5s. Does length matter? The short answer is no. Will it help a little bit? Yes, it will. But it is not a requirement by any means. Hole 2 is 575, and hole 8 is 570, which are a little bit tougher to eagle than holes 13 and 15, which are 510 and 530 respectively. Hole 2, we'll see about 5 to 8 eagles there, and hole 8, we'll see about 3 to 7 eagles there. I picked those numbers out a little bit just to say that 2 is a little bit easier to eagle than 8 because even though it's 5 yards longer, both shots are downhill, especially that second shot. Pretty much hitters of all distance will be able to hit that, will be able to go for that green in 2. But the thing is, that green is very well protected by bunkers, and it's not that deep of a green, and the pins are usually very well protected almost every day there. And so that's why you only see about, you usually count on 1 or 2 hands for how many eagles there are on that hole. Hole 8's a little bit tougher to eagle than 2, only in the sense that this is the one hole you do need driving distance because it is uphill. It is a slight dogleg right that turns into a slight dogleg left. It's a slight double dogleg, we'll call it that. The second shot, the tee shot's fairly flat and slightly uphill at the end of it, but the second shot's way uphill. You got a tree line going down the whole left-hand side. The green is very long and narrow, and there's mounds going along the left and right-hand side. And basically, to rip a 3-wood or, if you're one of the longer hitters, a utility club and kind of hit that chute and get it into that bowl, so to speak, to feed it onto the green and get the. And the other thing is, it's such a long and narrow green that it's really hard just to get the ball close to a pin. It'll depend a little bit. If there's a couple pin placements in the front, then maybe we might see maybe 5, 6, 7 eagles as opposed to 2 or 3. But either way, you're not going to see very many there. 13 and 15, we all know about these golf holes. 13 is 510 yards. That hole is not lengthened yet. That's only been discussed so far about moving the tee box back and buying some extra property. But that is 510. So in case you didn't read the details on what's been in the news there about Augusta's 13th hole in the last month or so, that's for the future, not for now. So we will see anywhere from about 10 to 20 eagles on this golf hole. Depends a little bit on weather and where the pin's at. But everybody's going to be able to go for this green in 2 if they so choose to do so. And then hole 15 at 530, this is the hole with the water right in front of the green, and the second shot is slightly downhill. Most people will be able to go for this green in 2. It is slightly longer. It's a little bit of a tougher shot, and so just because it's slightly longer and you've got all the water in front, you've got all the water to the left, and if you go long on that green, it is really tough coming back because it's a big downslope going back toward the water, and it's a green that you should only be going for really. If you hit a good drive and you feel actually like really confident you're going to hit the green in 2, or hit it anywhere close. So you won't see quite as much aggression there, but still you're going to probably be able to, you'll probably see double-digit eagles here, maybe like the 10 to 15 range, maybe not just quite as many as 13, but it should be up there pretty good. Okay, so the other thing that's that I hear talked about a lot are the blowups at Augusta. We see a lot of big numbers, particularly in the back nine and particularly on Sunday. So, but depending on the tournament and the golf course, how these blowups occur, it really does vary from tournament to tournament in terms of who's kind of vulnerable to it. For Augusta, it doesn't really have much to do with the driving distance because other than hole 13 with the water on the left, there are no penalty strokes off the tee. Now, unless you have a lost ball and you on 11 and you pull it way left in the woods, which doesn't happen very often and out of the narrow chute, but most of the time, your balls, if you're offline, you are in the trees or you're on another golf hole. 13 is the only time you're going to have a penalty stroke. So most of the time when people miss the fairway, they are punching out of the trees. They found a gap in the trees and they're hitting through it or over it. Or if they are on another golf hole, they're just hitting back over the trees. And oftentimes we've seen people make birdie from that situation, or at least have a fairly easy par. So how these blowups do happen is usually the people who are more vulnerable to this are the people that are younger or that have more tempers. And this usually comes into play with second shots on the back nine when there's water in play, or just short game errors from beginning to finish. And you see this probably, again, most often it does show up on Sunday when the nerves situation comes into play. But the Augusta greens are so delicate because they are very fast. And they are multi-tiered, and there's all these different sections and things of that nature. And it's every person that plays this golf course will do their research. And sure, the experience does help some as far as knowing all the details of the greens and everything like that and where to hit the shots. But the truth of the matter is just the simple, think of more in a general sense, because Augusta and the Masters is the biggest tournament of the year. If you ask players on tour what's the one tournament they want to win most, it's the Masters. Not everybody's going to say it, but the majority will. So oftentimes when it is the player's first time playing in the Masters or it's their first time being in contention, we've seen it time and time again. They often succumb to the pressure and they aren't able to close the deal. And oftentimes they can blow up big time. So again, this is usually people with don't have much experience here, or usually are really, they can throw big-time tempers and kind of get out of control in that sense. It's usually what it is. Obviously, there are some amazing players that have done this at very young ages, like Tiger Woods, obviously, in 97, just, defied those odds. And then after he shot 40 on the front nine, he just went bonkers the rest of the way on Thursday, after that 40 on Thursday. And then Jordan Spieth, obviously, he won last year, and then he finished second the year before that. But even when that happened, he had a lead against Bubba on the final day at one point, and he wasn't able to close the door, and he kind of, wouldn't call it he blew up, but he fell apart a little bit, no doubt about it. And so what I'm trying to say is the younger golfers in general kind of follow that sense. Now, if you're talking about you want to roster somebody that's 6,500, let's say, and he's kind of a fiery young guy and he doesn't have much experience at Augusta, I am not telling you should not use him. Just because if you have a guy that's 6,500 and he finishes top 10 or even top 20, that's pretty good, and that'll still give you a shot easily to win the Millionaire Maker, especially if your other picks, obviously, if your other picks are good. So that's definitely just one thing to keep in mind. It's more of those things that if you're breaking a tie between two people, and even some more of the expensive players, I would kind of try and stay away from those guys that don't have much experience or really kind of let their emotions get the best of them and everything like that. So. Okay, so as far as that covers pretty much the details of Augusta, and so we're going to move on to the statistics here, and there aren't that many stats I actually like to look at here, but they're main ones I've covered in the past. But there is one that stands above all by far, and that's proximity to the hole. Why is that? Well, it's because, like I was just saying before, the greens are very delicate. There are so many different sections to the hole. And it's when you're hitting approaches to these greens, it's just because there's so many sections in where the holes are located. Basically, you will not have many birdie putts that are extremely because when your approach shots are coming, you're not going to have very many short to mid-range putts that are extremely delicate or very difficult. So like if you have a pin that's in the middle of a section and you put it up on the slope and it trickles down, usually it's going to be in some way, shape, or form below the hole, or it's going to be a sideways turn. Now, when you're scrambling and you're chipping the ball, it's a little bit differently, where you might leave a ball per se because the ball's not coming in as hot or as high. And this is especially true, by the way, if the greens are firm. The reason why proximity to the hole is also just like that important is if you hit a shot that's 10 feet off your line, so to speak, your ball's not going to be 10 feet away from where you're if let's say that the pin's out of place and your spot is 5 yards, you're picking a line that's 10 feet to the left of the hole, and if you hit your shot 10 feet to the left of that target, so you're 20 feet left of the hole, that ball could easily end up being 80 feet away from the hole because it's just going to catch a slope and go in the complete wrong direction. So this is why like approach shots with your irons and having really good proximity to the hole, generally speaking, is important, because you have to be able to hit your shots on line, because shots that are slightly offline will end up being a lot more miserable at Augusta in comparison to other tournaments. Hopefully I got that explanation across all right. So that is the most important statistic, though, I definitely look at. I definitely still look at strokes gained tee to green. I always do that for every tournament, no matter what. Birdie or better percentage is absolutely important here, just because there will be birdie streaks out there to be had. Of course, eagles are definitely going to be big as well, and that's why we're going to look at going for the green hit percentage, and going for the green birdie or better percentage. Kind of put those three kind of under one roof, so to speak, and just take a look at all of them. So those are honestly really the main statistics I am looking at as far as making the picks. Again, the proximity to the hole is the main thing. The longer hitters do have an advantage at Augusta, mainly because longer hitters, generally speaking, will be a little bit less accurate than the shorter hitters, but driving accuracy won't cost you much at Augusta. So it's not to say shorter hitters can't do well at Augusta, because they definitely have done all right. But usually, generally, when you look at the past leaderboards and look at the people, especially who win the golf tournament, the longer hitters do have an advantage here. Just because they'll have shorter approaches most often, and that is especially important when if you're hitting into a green with a pitching wedge or a 9-iron as opposed to somebody else with a 4 or 5-iron, when you've got these small sections where the pins are at in these bowls that are really important to hit close to. It's a lot easier with a wedge or a 9-iron than it is with a 4 or 5-iron, and so that's where the longer hitters do have an advantage. But again, like I said, like anybody can make an eagle for the most part here with as far as the driving distance is concerned. I would just try and generally look toward kind of a balance of the longer hitters and some people more with experience, and usually do not tend to blow up basically or give up on their round. So that's kind of the balance we're looking at here. I'm going to get into the picks in the next part. Part 3 will consist of lineup construction, just kind of some thoughts as far as like how you may want to construct it, because we've got players priced from obviously about the mid 12,000 range all the way down to 5,000. We've got 229,000 people entering this Millionaire Maker, which is just crazy. It seems like that the payout structure is a little bit more flat this year, and so the gap between first and the rest of the places is not nearly as big this year as it was last year. So that's something we can take a look at a little bit as far as the lineup construction, as far as where we can think about maybe some ownership here, and some of my favorite picks for the Masters coming up, and that'll be up in the next couple of days. So in any case, that is it for this part. Hopefully this helps here a little bit for you as far as what to look for in your lineups. If you like this video or any of the other stuff we have done, please remember to like and subscribe to our Twitch and YouTube pages. And as always, you can follow me at Nick Juskewycz or DailyFantasyWinners at DFantasyWinners. All right, guys. Thanks.